the French Consulate. We are very grateful for your presence, the presence of the Senator, Father Desbois, the President du Conseil Consulaire. It's a great pleasure, and so many friends here in the Salon Rose of the Consulate General. It's a great day today. It's a great day because it's the first Conférence 934. This is some monthly conferences that we hold here at the Consulate. The topics are always very meaningful and very deep, and this is the case of the conference today. This conference brings experts who share their analyses on international issues and issues of common interest. And we have held these conferences for many years, but we had to stop because of the pandemic, and today it's the first in-person Conférence 934 that we are holding here, and we are very, very excited to have it again. We are also very extremely pleased to welcome Father Patrick Desbois. You are a human rights activist, you are a man of faith, you are simply a great man, and we are very grateful that you are holding this conference for us today. There are many friends of yours, many admirers also of your work, your engagements, and this is well deserved because let me introduce you a little bit, Father Desbois. You have been in the Catholic priesthood for 36 years. You are heading one of the most important commissions that has been established by the French conferences of Catholic bishops. Since 2008, you have been the chief of the Commission for Relation with the Jewish community, which is a very important task in France by this conference of French bishops. In 2004, following a proposal of Cardinal Lustiger, the Archbishop of Paris, whose family was Jewish and Polish, you founded the Yahad Unum, that means together in one, which is an organization that is dedicated to locating graves, the beginning graves of Jewish people in the former Soviet Union who were the victims of Nazi mobile killing units. This organization works and worked collecting testimonies from the local population, often in Ukraine, leading to the identification of previously unknown or little known graves. Father Desbois, you have made this struggle and made it to your life's work to bring public attention to the so-called Shoah by bullets, and we are grateful for your action because these are the terrible atrocities that began before the death camp that were fully established. When these death camps were fully established, and this before your work, the documentation was not solid enough. And thanks to your work and the work of your organization, we have now a solid documentation, which is so important to keep the memory of this atrocity. In the last years, you have broadened the scope of your research. You have worked on Guatemala. You have worked on the genocide of the Yazidi by ISIS, mostly in Iraq. After the conference, you will be privileged to see an exhibition of pictures produced by your organization, which is focused on the crimes committed against women, notably the rape, in all the countries that I have been mentioning, Guatemala, Iraq, and Romania. To them, these countries, but I'm sure there are also other countries. Today, the painstaking research that you are undertaking, you and your organization, is as vital as ever, not just so that we can remember and mourn the victims of the terror, but also because the lesson that from the past are not learned, and that these crimes are occurring again and terribly occurring again. And of course, I'm thinking of Ukraine, and you are also working in Ukraine. You are, as I said, well established in Ukraine, and all your presence there is very important, and you are also working very closely with the team of the Ukrainian president. So today, you are going to talk to us about the past, And sadly, you will also talk to us about the present, and you will make this bridge between this situation, this terrible situation, these terrible atrocities committed in the past, and also the one that are unfortunately taking place today, especially in Ukraine. So please join me in welcoming the great man that we have in front of us, Father Desbois. Thank you very much.
First, supposedly you can sit down. I don't know who is managing the movie. So, good evening everybody. Please sit down. It's not like it's a church, you can sit in the front. Good evening, and I must first be very thankful to the Consulate, because he has a huge responsibility here, and to take time to welcome a crazy priest coming from Paris with a crazy team called Yahad in Unum is very special. So first, I'm not alone, I'm working with a big team. Marco Gonzalez is working with me since 20 years, I don't know where he is. And Eva Taylor is also around here. I would say I am now the older guy in my organization, and the people are less than 30 years old, most of them. So we'll see this first movie to introduce what we are doing, and after I will try to introduce you to a reflection about what we discovered since 20 years. We have investigated the shooting of 2 million Jews, the shooting of 600,000 Gypsy, the shooting now of the indigenous people in Guatemala, and now in Iraq with the Yazidi. We have interviewed more than 500 survivors, and now I work in Ukraine of today with the victim of the Russian. So unfortunately, the level of the killer is the same music. So let's begin by this movie, and it will introduce you to what we are doing.
Tout a commencé dans un petit village en Ukraine, Khabarovsk. Vous savez qu'il y avait beaucoup de juifs avant la Deuxième Guerre mondiale, et on s'est demandé qu'est-ce qui s'est passé avec les juifs, puisqu'aujourd'hui il n'y a personne. En fait, ils ont été amenés au milieu de la forêt et ils ont été assassinés, fusillés. On a découvert que les juifs n'étaient pas enterrés, que personne ne savait où c'était, que personne ne voulait parler, que tout le monde disait qu'il n'y a jamais eu de fusillade. On arrive et on retrouve des gens âgés, des villageois. Ils nous racontent ce qui s'est passé avec les derniers juifs de Khabarovsk, ce qu'ils ont vu. Assisté aux fusillades de leurs voisins, parce qu'ils étaient les voisins des juifs ou des tziganes ou des communistes.
Quand on pense à l'Holocauste, c'est vrai que la première idée qui nous vient à l'esprit, c'est les camps de concentration, c'est Auschwitz. On ne se rend pas compte qu'il y a eu autant de fusillades, de fosses communes.
On est loin de s'imaginer la proportion que la Shoah a prise tout au long de la guerre, en fait, sur le front avec les unités mobiles qui ont massacré des personnes dans des centaines, voire des milliers de villages.
On se rend compte que ce n'était pas caché, c'était en public. Puisque c'est un génocide qui a été fait à la main, avec des hommes qui ont tué des autres hommes. Chaque victime a vu son assassin, et chaque assassin a vu sa victime. Et c'est comme ça que nous avons commencé à enquêter village par village en Europe de l'Est, pour trouver les preuves de ces assassinats des Juifs et des Tziganes. Mais avant tout ça, il y a des équipes qui travaillent à Paris, dans les bureaux de Yahad et Unum, et qui préparent ces voyages de recherche. Il y a tout un travail aussi scientifique et méthodologique qui a été développé.
Cette méthodologie s'articule en fait en plusieurs étapes. une première étape qui consiste en un travail de documentation, que ce soit des archives allemandes, des archives soviétiques, des archives polonaises, des archives roumaines.
Pour mener les enquêtes, Yahad a la possibilité d'accéder aux archives de Ludwigsburg, où il se trouve les dossiers judiciaires contre les bourreaux allemands.
On traite des témoignages, on fait des recherches sur chaque village, sur chaque région, chaque communauté, ce qu'elles ont vécu pendant la guerre et comment elles ont évolué après. Tant que cela est possible, parce qu'évidemment c'est une course contre la montre, les personnes vieillissent, les personnes meurent. Donc c'est très important ce qu'on fait, puisque un jour elles ne seront plus là pour raconter ce qu'elles ont vécu.
Et depuis 16 ans, eh bien, on frappe à la porte et on demande est-ce que vous étiez là, madame? Et est-ce que vous étiez là, monsieur? Et si la personne répond oui, eh bien, on essaie de sauver la mémoire de l'Europe.
On ne le fait pas froidement, c'est pas des enquêtes chirurgicales, elles sont précises, elles sont scientifiques, mais elles sont quand même humaines, il y a toujours une empathie très importante avec les témoins et avec les survivants.
Il nous donne la description très précise de ce qui s'est passé, de l'arrivée des Juifs, du déshabillage sur place, de comment ils étaient agenouillés devant la fosse, des fusillades, de l'allemand qui donne l'ordre de tirer avant que les bourreaux, visiblement ivres, tirent, du camion qui vient à la fin pour récupérer les vêtements. Ce sont des informations qu'on ne trouve pas dans les archives, ce sont des informations vraiment de quelqu'un qui était sur les lieux.
On interviewe autant des killers que des gens qui ont sauvé des juifs.
Ce que nous voulons savoir, c'est ce qui s'est passé.
Une enquête policière, une enquête criminelle dans les villages, de façon très locale, pour savoir ce qu'est devenu la communauté juive locale, comment ils ont été tués et où sont leurs cadavres actuellement, donc localiser les fosses communes.
Les équipes de Yahad d'Unum travaillent notamment avec des experts balistiques dans certains pays, puisque sur chaque douille, vous avez un lieu de fabrication et une année de fabrication. Il y a une réapparition de certaines mouvances, notamment de mouvances négationnistes, quand vous pouvez leur présenter des douilles que vous trouvez sur un lieu de massacre, des objets, des documents d'identité ou des artefacts qui sont liés à la tradition et à la religion juive. Vous pouvez vite comprendre que les victimes sont des juifs.
Il y a toujours des angles morts dans les génocides, dans les crimes de masse, dans les crimes en général. Et nous, notre mission, c'est aussi d'aller dans ces angles morts-là.
Donc on est, je dirais, dans la zone grise de l'humanité. C'est un challenge difficile parce qu'il a fallu admettre que finalement les voisins des juifs ou des tziganes sont contents parce qu'ils auront la maison, parce qu'ils auront les filles, parce qu'ils auront l'argent, les bijoux, les chaussures.
C'est toujours inconfortable, c'est toujours difficile, dangereux, souvent dangereux, disons. Mais c'est nécessaire parce que si ces angles morts-là sont laissés vacants, c'est la porte ouverte à une déformation de l'histoire, à une utilisation politique de l'histoire.
Nous avons collecté plus de 7000 témoignages. Et grâce à ces témoignages-là, on arrive à comprendre ces mécanismes d'assassinat qui nous a fait comprendre comment ça marche un génocide. Le père Desbois parle très souvent qu'il n'aime pas quand on dit never again, plus jamais. Parce que malheureusement, après la Shoah, il y a eu des autres génocides, des autres violences de masse qui se sont passées.
Tout part de la haine de l'autre, tout part de la peur de l'autre et de l'incompréhension de l'autre aussi, de ce qu'est l'autre et de ce qu'il représente.
Parce que cette population est différente, parce que cette population a des origines différentes, parce que cette population a une religion différente. Et c'est ça qui nous permet aujourd'hui de pouvoir agir quand il se passe quelque chose dans le monde. C'est ça qui nous a amenés dans les petits villages des peuples quichés au Guatemala, pour essayer de comprendre aussi ce qui s'est passé pendant les années 80. Selon les historiens, il y a eu entre 250 000 et 500 000 victimes.
Là encore, on a interviewé des femmes, des hommes qui ont survécu. Je me souviens de cette femme qui était enceinte de 8 mois, qui a été violée et dont la fille maintenant est handicapée à vie, alors que l'on tuait son mari et ses autres enfants. Je me souviens de ce groupe de femmes qui n'osaient rien dire, et tout d'un coup, l'une d'elles, la plus jolie, a dit on a toutes été violées, on était enfermés dans une grange et les hommes venaient les uns après les autres. Et donc ça nous a ouvert à nouveau la zone grise des massacres de masse dont personne ne parle, que tout le monde oublie, parce que c'est pas à la mode, parce que ça n'attire pas les médias.
Il y a plusieurs points communs dans la tuerie, dans la haine, peu importe finalement l'histoire que peut avoir le pays et les communautés visées. Au Guatemala, encore une fois, en Irak maintenant, mais aussi au Rwanda, le modèle de la Shoah par balle que nous, ici à Yahad, on documente, qui est aussi utilisé dans ces différents endroits, avec des améliorations pour certains, des améliorations plutôt lugubres et morbides, mais des améliorations dans les méthodes d'exécution et dans la façon de traiter les victimes.
Puis est arrivé le génocide des Yazidis par Daesh. Lorsque moi-même j'ai vu les images à la télévision, que l'on parlait d'un génocide, j'ai pris le temps de prier 3 jours, et après 3 jours ça m'a paru clair qu'il fallait aller en Irak.
Et pour lui, c'était insoutenable de regarder toutes ces images à la télévision où on voyait tous ces femmes, enfants et des hommes yazidis qui étaient en train de se faire massacrer en Irak. Ce sont toutes des femmes et des enfants qui ont réussi à s'échapper de Daesh. Dans ce cas-là, on ne parle pas de témoins, on parle de survivants.
On a filmé plus de 400 survivants, survivantes qui sortent des griffes de Daesh. Les récits sont terribles.
On a été contacté par les administrations françaises qui avaient des questions sur les enfants français qui revenaient. C'était évidemment des enfants très difficiles à gérer. On leur donnait une image précise, grâce au regard des Yézidis, une image précise de ce que c'était pour un enfant de vivre sous Daesh. Ils voyaient des condamnés à mort crucifiés dans les rues, où les condamnés à mort sont exposés sur des grilles de square, on lapide des gens, on jette des gens par les immeubles légalement. Ce sont des peines légales que les enfants voyaient. Ces enfants n'ont pas été protégés, eux. Ils ont vu la violence, on leur a enseigné la violence. C'est assez clair que c'est une éducation qui rend les enfants dangereux. C'est une éducation qui doit être déconstruite.
Et puis nous avons ouvert des centres pour les rétablir entre guillemets dans leur identité. Et nous avons la joie de voir plus de la moitié des jeunes retrouver la vie, le sourire, la joie.
Et ça a été un tournant pour Yahad Unum, ce moment-là. D'organisation de recherche, d'organisation de recueil de preuves et d'enseignements, on a développé une expertise d'aide aux survivants. En fait, c'est ça, Yahad se situe vraiment du côté des victimes oubliées. Oubliées par l'histoire, parce qu'elles étaient loin, parce qu'elles étaient soviétiques, parce qu'elles étaient en bas de l'échelle des koufars.
Yahad, c'est pas simplement la mémoire, c'est pas simplement les crimes, c'est aussi l'avenir. Il faut que l'on s'occupe des victimes de ces massacres aujourd'hui, et en prenant en compte, je dirais, la zone grise qui les habite aussi, puisque eux-mêmes sont devenus la plupart des terroristes.
Et c'est la raison pour laquelle c'est important d'enseigner la Shoah, pas uniquement comme un fait historique, comme quelque chose qui s'est passé il y a 70 ans, il y a 80 ans, pour montrer aux nouvelles générations ce qui est un génocide, ce qui est une violence de masse. Ça doit avoir un impact aujourd'hui.
Certains sont mobilisés par le réchauffement climatique et c'est très important. Certains par l'écologie et c'est très important. Mais tous les jours aussi, on tue, on égorge, on met des bombes. Une fois c'était Kaboul, alors bon, Kaboul c'est loin. Une fois c'est au Nigeria, oh, bah, on ne sait pas trop où c'est. Et puis tout d'un coup, c'est pas loin de Paris. Tout d'un coup, c'est à Nice. Tout d'un coup, c'est à Orlando. Tout d'un coup, c'est dans les banlieues de Brooklyn. Tout d'un coup, c'est à Pittsburgh. Alors là, on est touché. On est touché parce que c'est les voisins. Et il faut que des générations de jeunes se lèvent demain. On ne peut pas déléguer la responsabilité de la planète uniquement à la police et aux services secrets. il faut que chacun prenne ses responsabilités. Yahad, c'est aussi pour connecter d'autres personnes qui dorment mal lorsque l'on tue quelqu'un très loin. Si on continue à bien dormir, on va se réveiller dans un cauchemar.
So after this movie, for people who don't know very well what we did, is I will remember that since 20 years now, we investigate in every village was being occupied by the Nazi units, from Lithuania, Estonia to Azerbaijan. So it means Poland, Ukraine, Moldavia, Romania, Belarus, Russia, etc. It was a full continent of extermination, and the Nazi during 3 years shot minimum 2,000,002 Jews, plus the Roma, plus the communists, plus anybody who was against them. And so our way to investigate was to find the neighbors who were present at the killings. And here I will begin a reflection. You must understand that the killings were public. It was even advertised. I will never forget, it was in a small city called Medjugorje, and very well known in Judaism. And a woman told me, we saw everything from our house. I was a child. And I asked to the lady, where is your farm? And when I saw the farm, I said, it's impossible, ma'am, you are far away. She said, I didn't say the truth. My mom came back from the market, and she told us we have to dress very well, because today they kill the Jews. So she said for the first killing, we found a very good place. We saw everything. But for the second killing, we couldn't find a good place. And so at that day, I found in this small city 17 witnesses wanted to speak, because they were present at the killing of the Jews. So you must understand the first thing that we must stop thinking, Holocaust was not secret. Absolutely not. Not Auschwitz was secret, not Belzec was secret, and the shootings were ultra advertised. I remember it was a city where it was one of the biggest shootings of Jews in Ukraine, and I interviewed a lady, she was a child, and her grandpa proposed to carry her on his shoulders. And she saw the shooting the full day, and grandpa was always asking, do you see well, do you see well? So you must understand, unfortunately, a genocide, a mass killing is not frightening. It's not frightening. When people knew they were not Jews, they were not gypsy, they were not communist, so there was no risk. And they knew that finally that day, they were chosen to be alive. And that day also we could get the houses, the plates, the horses of the Jews. So finally, even if it was sad, it was a good day. So I say that because when you work on the ground, on a genocide ground, you lose your utopia on humanity. Because I met powerful people who kill Jews. I met nice people who save Jews, but everybody went to watch. And it didn't depend on the religion. I met Catholic people, Orthodox people, communist people, the same. That's the first point. And since I work now, I know all the mass killings are public. And it's even attractive. It's even attractive. You know, you are American, you are in New York, you had 9/11. So you saw it from near, but us, we were far. We saw 1,000 times the planes come enter. Not one time, not 2 times, not 5 times. It was a full day. Normally, if people didn't want to watch, we close the TV. Who closed the TV? Nobody. There was only 2 planes. It was already awful. The first thing is public. It's not frightening. I will never forget, I interviewed a priest. It was the beginning for investigation. It was in Poland. And his parish was just in front of the camp of Belzec. In Belzec, they killed by gas 500,000 Jews. And so he was taking holidays because he was from the city and he was a photographer. So he climbed on the roof of his parish and he took pictures. And he welcomed us, nice meal with hot milk, chocolate. I was not a good cameraman. It was the beginning. We had no team. Yahad didn't exist. And I asked the priest, it made you nothing to see 500,000 human beings, Jews, being killed in front of you? And he said, yes, it was very difficult because my mother didn't bear the smoke. And she was headache, and I had to take care of my mom every afternoon. It was the only embarrassing thing. So I realized when you are deeply anti-Semite, brainwashed since centuries, you don't see them as human beings. It's like if you change your eyes, you don't feel from the same group. It's sad to say, but it's like a dirty animal that is killed in front of you. And I don't know if you have small rats in your apartment, but I'm sure you make what you have to do to destroy the rats, or to make them go. And so I realized that this priest was not a fascist. He took care in his life of blind people, old people. He was a good guy. But he never saw 500,000 Jews as human beings. And I met so many like that. Because you know, when you begin an investigation, you see, how's the Polish, awful Polish. After you go to Ukraine, you say, oh, awful Ukrainian. After you go to Lithuania, you say, awful Lithuanian. After you go to Russia, you don't say awful Russian because you lose your visa. So, but it's the same. And when I went in Iraq to investigate about the crimes of ISIS, very few Polish, very few Ukrainian, and the same music. People suddenly saw a Yazidi because he was not a believer with a book to be raped, to be sold, like an animal. And these people were joining ISIS from everywhere, even America. I will never forget, I interviewed a young boy, Yazidi. He just escaped, and he was sold to an American family, ISIS, in Syria. And he refused to speak in Kurdish. He said, I'm not Yazidi, I'm American. He was completely brainwashed. His American man was not his man, was called Sam. And suddenly, he said, and he was very Americanized, so he said, can I ask something? I said, yes. He said, Father, you will give me money for this interview? I said, money for what? He told me, I need to buy he was 9 years old. I need to buy a pistol to kill my dad. His biological dad. So I saw that in Ukraine, I saw that in Russia, I saw that everywhere. Anti-Semitism and racism is not a national disease. It's a human disease. And it can take anybody, if there is a propaganda who repeats endlessly these people are not really human, you have to treat the problem. The second point I would like to treat with you is the weight of propaganda. You know, before a killing, when they have to kill the Jews of a village, the German, they sent flyers everywhere on the wall, because you know, there were no TV, there was no internet, and so they have to put some papers everywhere with propaganda. And why do you think they did that in every village? Because propaganda is the key. Because propaganda was to say, you have to not to move. They will kill the Jews in front of you, and you have not to react. You know, we have interviewed nearly 8,000 people. We have found 2,700 extermination sites. We never found a place where partisan or Red Army stopped the killing. Never one. Never one. And you know, there were a lot of partisans in Belarus and in Russia. There were a lot of Soviet partisans. Nobody made an intervention. Because in one way, it was sad. But it was the Jews. But it was the Gypsy. So not completely unjust. So propaganda has been so strong that Hitler never missed workers. When he arrived in Poland, he found Polish to work with him. When he arrived in Ukraine, he found Ukrainian to work with him. When he arrived in Russia, in spite of what Putin says today, he found Russian to work with him. In every country, people were ready to say, hey, I want to be part of that game. For different reasons. Because they hated the Jews, but also because we could get the money. I will give you an example. It was a man in Romania. We knew from the neighbors that he has killed himself 223 Jews. And so he was very old. He was 105. Me, I didn't want to make the interview. I said, come on, 105, he lost his memory. When he arrived, he was as smart as me. He welcomed us. And I was afraid that at the last moment he would say it was not me. So after 1 hour of interview, because we built a special methodology to make people speak, I say, are you sure, sir, it's you? It's you who killed the Jews yourself? He said, what do you think? I was the highest rank in the group. Of course it's me. And I say, are you sure you killed more than 230 Jews? Because I knew the number. He told me, of course, because I knew I needed 3 boxes of cartridges. And every box was 100 cartridge. He never said one word about the victim. Only about the machine gun, the difficulty to shoot, the weight of the machine gun. And when we asked if they were babies, if they were women, if they were men, was not interested. But he spoke. And so, what we succeeded to do is to save the memory of Eastern Europe, of all these gray zones. They are not completely killers, sometimes they are not victims, sometimes, but they are in the middle. And we are ready to speak. And our big surprise in Yahad is that people were ready to speak. So I want to pay tribute to Jacques, who is here in charge of the Jewish Heritage Museum, because it's the first museum where we show our interactive map with all the points where people have been killed with evidence. It's the first time a museum accepts to show that. I have to congratulate you and to thank you. And so, and I thank Patty Kenner, who is a strong friend from you, the museum, and from us since a long time, one of our angels. It's why she doesn't see it, because she flies normally. And so, first thing, it was public. Second thing, propaganda was huge. Propaganda was huge also for ISIS. In ISIS, there were people from all over the world. The first time I met Australian in ISIS, I said, why did you join? He said, because we're ready to sell our house to be fighting and killing the bad people in Syria and Iraq. We met Uyghur from China, who left China to fight. We met people from France, of course, from Germany, and from America and from Canada. And of course from Saudi and from the Arab countries. Same thing, Abu Bakr Baghdadi never missed workers. He always found people to make the dirty job. The third thing is that I saw that the conscience of a human being when there is a genocide is very fragile. You know, me, I teach in Georgetown, and now Yahad is developing teaching in different universities in America and out of America, because in university there is a lot of anti-Semitism, as you know, and we are targeting now the university's campus, because I see now in Georgetown, but we see in other universities how it works. And I always say to my students, you are smart, you know Georgetown is so expensive, you are smart. And so I say, you are smart, you will have a beautiful job, but perhaps one day you will be a diplomat, you will be a banker, you will be a journalist, or I don't know what, in a country where mass crimes will happen. Perhaps you will wake up completely changed. perhaps you will no more take your responsibility, perhaps you will become an evil, because everybody can be a killer, everybody can be a victim. And I think we have to educate the conscience. First, people now are completely indifferent. You open the TV tomorrow, you will open the TV, you will hear bombs in Ukraine, bombs perhaps in Kabul, perhaps one attack in far away. Okay, let's see now the breakfast. Indifference all over the planet, as far as it's not near. Secondly, when people are very near, they are fragile. I always give in my course this example. I don't know for Americans who are here if you remember this girl, this American soldier, was working in Abu Ghraib in Iraq. And you remember she was taken in picture with naked men that she was mistreating, and it was in all the news. And I always say to my students, be careful. I'm sure if this girl had never been appointed in a jail in Iraq, if she was working in Macy's, she will never do that. But nobody told her, be careful. You are fragile. You will be with power, with solitude, and perhaps will lose your mind and become a monster. I always dream to meet with her because I think she's normal. And so I think we have to educate. It's why we have to teach Holocaust against anti-Semitism today. First, because anti-Semitism is coming back. You don't feel it too much in America, but us in Europe, you cannot make a conference about the Jews with army at the door. And police is checking in my home every day if I am okay. And I don't take a subway, I cannot go on the street without police. And so, first, because anti-Semitism is coming back. Secondly, because propaganda is coming back. You know, you are far from Ukraine. Me, I know every village of Ukraine, and I know also every village of Russia until Azerbaijan. And when I see the propaganda of Putin, I could not believe. I could not believe. He can say the sky is red, people will say yes, the sky is red. And so we began also investigation in Ukraine. By example, I will give you an example. He destroyed a supermarket, he blew a supermarket in Vinnytsia, and he said immediately, no, there was no victim because the supermarket was closed, except that we interviewed 7 employees of the supermarket who were surviving to the bombing, etc., etc. So we are in a century where propaganda is very, very strongly coming back. We are lucky because we are in America. You will vote for who you want. Me, I vote for who I want. If I am against Macron, nobody will catch me in a jail the same day. But there are so many countries where you cannot do that. I will not give you the list because I don't want to lose my other visa. And, but in some countries, if you dare to say one word against the government, something will happen very quickly. If you make a small Facebook against the institution, something will happen immediately. And I think we must not forget it covers a big part of the planet. So propaganda is still strong. And this propaganda is always connected to propose to young people to say, come on, you have a basic life. You are a basic French, a basic Jordanian, a basic Russian. And you could be a hero. You have a special vocation. I know a guy who was in Belgium. He was Moroccan. He was drinking. He was smoking grass. They had a bar. They were not good Muslims. And suddenly people contacted them and say, you could be a good Muslim in one day if you give your life for jihad. And this guy carried a bomb in Paris. And now he's in jail forever. But we know him, he's a small guy. He's not a super guy. But he wanted to be James Bond. I don't know if you saw the James Bond, but I'm always interested by James Bond because he always finished to kill the bad guy. You know, there is no James Bond without killing. We wait until the end. Will we kill him? Yes, of course. And so, this propaganda today that Hitler used, that Stalin used, that other people are using, is to promote young people to say you have the vocation to be killers, follow us, and they find people. It's why it's such an emergency to teach the crimes committed during Holocaust by bullets and Holocaust in general, because it's sadly the biggest example of a full Europe running behind Hitler, ready to kill 6 million Jews, because every Jew has been killed by somebody, even in Auschwitz. Always somebody closed the door of the gas chamber, always somebody put the gas inside. Nothing was automatic. Everybody has been killed. I don't like to say my mom died by Holocaust. I say no, my mother died killed by Jürgen Hans or by another man. You know, we found in the list of the killers of Babi Yar, 2,000 German. Only 5 have been judged. And we published last year the name of 159, and people say it's a shame for the family that you do that. I say, okay, but we killed 30,000 Jews a long time ago, they have never been judged. And I say that because we have to come back to teach Holocaust as a crime, to teach young generation, and to understand that against us, there are other groups who are trying to attract the young people, to say, come on, come with us, come be terrorist or be white hate group or whatever, and try to catch somebody and to kill somebody. It's why to teach Holocaust is not to teach the past, is not only to teach because it was the Jews, is to teach because it's the biggest awful place and affair in history of the planet, where full Europe was educated, Christian, with philosophy, with culture, with theater, with opera in Germany and in France and Italy, and no problem. We follow Hitler and we go to kill. If we don't do that, the mass killers, they study us. They know we like good life. You know, they know we like to go to Florida and to California and to go to Cancun for spring break, etc., etc. So they study us. And they know we are weak. And they know we are strong. I can tell you, we work in Ukraine today. We try to help the team of Zelensky and also to investigate on the ground. We have filmed 159 victims and we cooperate with justice. So anyone who wants to support us, because also we need money and support, I cannot hide that. You will have pledge card at the exit. Try to do what you can, because we are not the only one. Jewish Heritage Museum is here, other people are here, but we need your support to go on and to finish. We are still 2 years to find the last mass grave. And we have to begin a teaching in many universities. That's a big challenge. If we don't do that, if Jewish Heritage Museum doesn't do its job, we'll finish in a very bad situation. You will have also an exhibit. We have prepared for you an exhibit with outside here. It's only of women. Women were Jews, women were Gypsy, women were Yazidi, and women from Guatemala. The only common fact is that all these women have been raped. Why we do that? I will give you an example. It was in Romania. I was in a barn. It was a barn where they shot Jews. And I will never forget, it was like a small museum in a village. And it was well done. And they put the picture of all the men who have been shot. And I smelled something was not real. So when he closed the door, I said to the guy, is it strange because there is no woman? He told me, oh, you know, they raped the woman, but it's nothing, it's not the same. And so I realized that the rate of women in a genocide and mass crime is considered like a collateral. We give the number of killed, we never give the number of women who have been raped. And I found that everywhere. In Eastern Europe, the German has Jewish sex slaves in every Gestapo, in every office, and nobody said anything. And they shot them at the end when they were pregnant. We found in every village a mass grave, what they call the mass grave of the girls. When German arrived in a gypsy village, they raped the girls. When army or communists came in a village in Guatemala, they raped the girls. Today, when the Russians are coming, they are doing the same. And it's not easy to name it. And it's not easy for the women to show themselves and to say, I have been raped. For different reasons. First, culturally, it's not easy. But also, it's not considered as important. She will never be in the list of the victims. So we are the capacity to see this memory, so this exhibit is accessible after the pledge card. And you are very welcome in this consulate. We are, bless the Lord, to be French and to be American. It's not perfect, but I can tell you there are so many places in the planet where I would be arrested after that speech. Thank you. If you have any question, it's possible. There's a lady with a microphone here. Here.
Can you tell us more in particular about the programs that you want to conduct in American universities?
Yeah. It's a good question. If you have any good ideas, I could employ you. And so, I work in Georgetown since 8 years. And I see that first there was no real teaching of Holocaust. We made a real program, and also we proposed people for spring break to go on the ground in Moldavia, or in Ukraine, or in Poland, etc. And I saw for these students who are not necessarily Jews, majority are not, it's a changing life experience. And I asked my students, because our class is always full, I asked, why are you coming? Because it's a difficult course, because it's called forensic of Holocaust and forensic of terrorists, so it's a very medical legal approach. And they say because we are looking for what to do in our life. And I saw also, the first time I saw the week of apartheid. I'm French, so we have no week of apartheid in France. And I didn't realize, I saw all the posters against the Jews. And I saw that some groups that I will not name here, since long time are targeting the campus to support groups financially will be anti-Jew. The anti-Semitism in the campuses of America and the boycott of Israel, the call for boycott of Israel, doesn't come from the blue. It has been sponsored since long time. So I think we have to give access to some professors and to some students to the primary sources that we have, so that they can not repeat the books that they read, but train people with a real, I would say, approach, like a police approach. Me, I see most of the crimes committed during Holocaust as cold case, because not everything has been open. And it's very different if you teach like that with primary sources, than if you repeat only that Jews have been killed. And also to show that unfortunately Hitler today is abroad. I've made conferences all over the planet, but never to introduce Hitler. You will not find so many books about Stalin. You will not find so many books about Mao, but always there are books about Hitler. He is the brand of the mass killer for the planet. He made his name. And so we have to work, I think, intensively, and we do that also in France, in the campuses, because other groups are targeting your upscale society to build a future leader who will be deeply against the Jews and against Israel. Because for them it's the same music. Yes?
Quick. Yes, a question. How does the world adjust to genocide when there is such
I don't see you, but
yeah.
Okay.
In general, how does the world adjust to genocide when there is such disequilibrium common where the situation become again sustainable in the next generation?
What do you mean?
like there's a lot of hate and so is there like things that you can speak about after the genocide and
when the genocide is finished, you mean?
Yeah, and it's become public and people start to know about it.
First, I don't like to use too much the term of genocide. It's not always genocide. It could be mass crimes, crime against humanity, and not necessarily genocide. It's sure I see in Iraq when a genocide is finished, it doesn't mean that people like the Yazidi. Everybody will say they have been victim of genocide, but when you apply to find a job, it's very difficult because they are not Muslims. And so, hate is a long-time disease, And by example, anti-Semitism with coming back in Europe, like it is in France, it's absolutely no reason. And so why so many French Jews are leaving France and go to Israel? So, you are right, after a genocide you have to work, but nevertheless, I think the teaching of the Holocaust and the teaching of genocide today is the best way to protect the young generation. To show them how many young people followed that. And from any style. You know, when I began working in Iraq, I was thinking that an American who would join ISIS would be a silly guy with a big beard with no brain. No, I found doctors, I found physicians, I found people in internet working who join and ready to sacrifice their life for that. So that's a real danger.